Corpus Christi plans to reduce water usage across the board in September. SpaceX gets the green light for mixed-use development construction. And today is Earth Day. What are Texas nature and wildlife institutions doing as drought conditions continue across the state? This is South Texas Midday. I'm Rob Boskamp. Thank you for joining me on this Wednesday, April 22nd. A water crisis continues to deepen in Corpus Christi. KEDT's Emily Salazar has the details.
Speaking in Washington, D.C. last week, South Texas Congressman Michael Cloud laid out the situation in Corpus Christi for U.S. Energy Secretary and fellow lawmakers.
We do have a situation right now in Corpus where all the energy that's produced there and a lot of the refining that's being done, we're running out of water.
Corpus Christi leaders said that they plan to implement unprecedented water restrictions in September because of ongoing drought conditions. But they struggled to articulate what life would look like under the restrictions and whether such ambitious conservation targets are even possible. That's because more than half the city's daily water consumption comes from the multi-billion-dollar chemical plants, refineries, and other industrial facilities operated by some of the biggest companies in the world. And those companies, like ExxonMobil, Valero, and Occidental, have not said how they plan to dramatically cut water use. I'm Emily Salazar in Corpus Christi.
The Rio Grande Valley Business Journal reports that SpaceX now has approval to construct on a 53-acre mixed-use development along Boca Chica Boulevard in Starbase. City commissioners approved the company's plans Monday. The Huddleston subdivision is located on the south side of the boulevard, across the highway from the original Ad Astra school, which served students, some of whom were children of SpaceX employees between 2021 and 2023. In 2024, SpaceX filed construction documents for a new $1.4 million daycare building on the old Ad Astra school site. The Rio Grande Valley Business Journal is in partnership with KEDT. Victoria City Council met Tuesday. They are in the early stages of implementing several policies related to the Victoria Fire Department. They discussed implementing Texas Local Government Code Chapters 143, also known as the Municipal Civil Service Act, and Chapter 174, which allows police and firefighters to organize and collectively bargain.
We're at the beginning stages of that. And so we received formal intent to bargain from the Firefighters Association a couple of weeks ago. We've made initial formal contact with them. We are in the process of finalizing our very first informal meeting amongst negotiating teams to take place the first week of May. We are working with them collaboratively on doing some training. Since this, of course, is new for everybody involved, they've been very collaborative, very professional in our dealings in regards to setting it all up. So we anticipate that formal collective bargaining meetings will commence in May.
That was City Manager Jesus Garza on Tuesday. Council members also passed 9 consent agenda items. Some of those include approving a $3 million advance funding agreement between the city and the Texas Department of Transportation for the Guy Grant Trail project, the renewal of the city attorney employment agreement, and executing an interlocal agreement with the Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission to support and promote the Know Where It Goes Household Hazardous Waste campaign. Victoria City Council meets on the first and third Tuesdays of each month. Meetings are live streamed online at victoriatx.gov and on YouTube at Victoria Texas Videos. Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller says the threat of New World Screwworm is creeping closer to the Texas-Mexico border. Miller said last week that a recent case was detected about 90 miles from the border in the Mexican state of Nuevo León. Miller said Monday the latest case, also in Nuevo León, was reported 60 miles from the border. The flesh-eating screwworm fly larvae poses a grave threat to the livestock industry. State officials broke ground last week on a new sterile fly facility in Edinburgh to combat the screwworm in South Texas. In state news, a federal appeals court has upheld a Texas law requiring the display of the Ten Commandments in every public school classroom in the state. Houston Public Media's Andrew Schneider reports the ruling has significant implications for long-established ideas of the separation of church and state.
The Fifth Circuit judges ruled 9-8 that the Texas law does not violate the First Amendment to the Constitution, either in its prohibition of government-established religion or its protection for the free exercise or non-exercise of religion. Charles Rocky Rhodes teaches constitutional law at the University of Missouri.
It seems, based on the Fifth Circuit's interpretation here, pretty much anything else that the government wants to do to acknowledge religion is going to be acceptable.
The ACLU and other organizations representing the plaintiffs challenging the Texas law say they anticipate asking the Supreme Court to reverse the Fifth Circuit's ruling. I'm Andrew Schneider in Houston.
Today is Earth Day as drought conditions across Texas continue. Nature and wildlife institutions across the state are doing their part to adapt and educate. A recent state analysis shows that communities will need to spend $174 billion in the next 50 years to avoid a severe water crisis. Water sources have become a hot item across the state, no pun intended. Over 85% of Texas is reported to be in at least abnormally dry conditions, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor. Over 75% is currently in some level of drought.
How do we both celebrate the fresh water we have and protect it while we still can? Well, I'm on a mission to find out.
The Nature Conservancy, or TNC, in Texas, a nonprofit environmental organization, has protected 1 million acres in the state, ranging from efforts spread across national parks, nature preserves, and working with landowners, ranchers, and farmers to safeguard those landscapes. Along with environmental advocacy, TNC in Texas is raising awareness. They collaborated with Chet Garner, host of the award-winning PBS travel show The Day Tripper, to create a 3-episode series about the value of statewide landscapes.
So for 16 years, I've been day tripping around Texas, telling the stories of small towns and our beautiful outdoor spots, and to be able to get a little more gritty and boots on the ground and to see some of the work the Nature Conservancy is doing at some places that aren't necessarily publicly accessible was oh, this is awesome.
Making of a Million, Day Tripping with TNC Texas spotlights several places that Conservancy has protected in Texas, highlighting why freshwater and grassland conservation are critical for the state's future.
We don't realize that the water decisions we make at our homes and in our lives very much affect those populations. People at the Nature Conservancy, Texan Parks and Wildlife, how much they feel like they're climbing uphill all the time and fighting to keep those populations healthy and strong.
As drought conditions continue across Texas, a visual change in vegetation is noticeable.
Vegetation communities are stressed throughout the state. As we're working in habitat management and restoration, we are seeing a loss of productivity. When I say productivity, I'm meaning seed production.
That's Sonia Najera, South Texas project manager for TNC in Texas. With drought conditions affecting landscapes and water, you can't leave out the skies.
One thing I learned at the Mad Island Marsh specifically was how dramatic and quickly the changes have been to the giant flocks of migrating birds. And there's some reasons maybe other than drought, but they're not coming back to Texas in near the numbers. Sonia, it was 90% down or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of these, some of these populations are being short-stocked with the change in weather patterns. Also, some of our wetlands are just not wet anymore. And so we have to adapt. We have to adapt to these changes.
The Gladys Porter Zoo in Brownsville has even noticed an assortment of local birds like ducks dropping in more often due to shrinking water sources in the Rio Grande Valley. The change in atmosphere also affects the zoo's current residents.
Animals do behave differently when the atmospheric pressure changes, in particular flamingos and other waterfowl. If it hasn't rained, they're not going to feel the need to lay eggs. So we will have less throughout the season if it doesn't rain on a timely basis or if it doesn't rain at all.
That's Sergio Garcia, curator of education at the zoo. About 1,600 animals turn to flora like banana trees for nourishment and enhancement. When the zoo started to see drought affect its foliage, they invested in a rain harvesting system that can collect up to 120,000 gallons of water on an annual basis. Garcia says the water is not so much for animal survival, but for their well-being.
You're thinking, if it doesn't rain, how do you collect water? Well, it's able to collect enough water from the little bit of rain and condensation that collects on the roof. So it's a great way to be able to conserve the rainwater we do get.
In Corpus Christi, where the city is months away from a water emergency declaration, Texas State Aquarium is working with what it's got. Naturally being on the shores of Corpus Christi Bay, a whole lot of salt water, and some science.
We have the ability to recycle all of our seawater as well. We can kind of bypass a lot of the different uses that you might typically see in a water system. So cleaning the filters, we can actually clean the filters with seawater. We can recapture that now dirty water and recycle it. So we can practice a pretty good water conservation just on a daily operation.
That's aquarium president and CEO Jesse Gilbert. He says the aquarium uses reverse osmosis technology on a lot of its 1.5 million gallons coursing through it.
We've looked at possibly doing some reverse osmosis of water here ourselves because we bring in seawater. And so we're kind of running some different ideas and scenarios through what that would look like. But I think it would actually be that we would be able to produce fresh water and use that here at the aquarium and possibly for some other uses.
One potential change officials have considered using the technology during and rescue field operations. As drought conditions weigh on the city, officials plan to modify its splash pad to use salt water instead of fresh water. As institutions do their part to promote conservation, Texas residents can too. It's a big state, but even small actions can make a splash. And in sports, the Texas A&M University-Corpus Christi baseball team has resumed a Southland Conference game with Nicholls State. The original game back on March 6th had been protested due to a misapplication of the NCAA's video review rules. The Islanders, 7-13 in Southland Conference play, and the Colonels, 13-10 in conference, resume at a neutral site in Houston in the bottom of the first inning, with Nicholls leading 1-0 and A&M Corpus Christi having 2 outs and the bases loaded. The game's live stats will be available on the Islanders Athletics baseball page. And that is the latest news and information on South Texas Midday. I'm Rob Boskamp. Your community arts calendar and more is on the way.